Well, welcome, Susie, to the Lessons of a Lashpreneur show. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good, good. All right, why don't you give everybody just a kind of a quick little snippet of who you are, where you're at, what your business model's like?
Sure. So I am Susie Montanez and I own Lash. I have two locations in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So I'm new to having two locations. I just opened I took ownership of my second location in January. So I kind of started off my career out of college many, many years ago in the corporate world. And after years of that and having a child and not wanting to travel as much and kind of wanting to be the master of my own destiny, I decided to branch off and do something that kind of fueled my creative spirit a little bit more. And that was lashes. So back in that era, lashes were actually unregulated in Minnesota. So I was able to just work out of my house and just kind of like slowly build up a clientele with my neighbors, friends, family. And then as it started to grow, I decided that I could actually, consider making a living out of this and not having to sacrifice my time and my mental health in that corporate world that really wasn't serving what fueled my spirit. So it's just kind of one thing after another, one foot forward. And I ended up renting my own salon suite. And then that moved into getting my first commercial lease in a small 800 foot, or no, it was, I think 350 square feet. And then expanding that location and just kind of feeling like I wanted something bigger. So I was contemplating on whether or not I wanted to either move locations again, which I love the location that I was in, and I didn't really want to do that, but I wanted more space. And all of a sudden I found out about a business that was for sale nearby me in a location that I was really looking for. And the price to purchase it was basically what I would have paid for a build out. So I decided to take the plunge. I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm happy I'm here overall. It's definitely pushing me to think about things in a really different way, which ultimately led me to the Lashpreneur and doing the mastermind group.
Love
So
it.
here I am.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's kind of talk about what did the team mix look like? Let's go back to last year and how you viewed business and how you kind of like, where was the direction you were heading around this time last year?
So this time last year, I didn't even know that I was going to be buying a second location. That's how kind of fast it unfolded. So I knew I had been looking around at different spaces. I think I just had I either had one or two employees. I was just starting to kind of feel out what having employees and building a team looked like. And I was just sort of like learning as I go, like I've done the entire time with my business, just kind of like fake it till you make it kind of.
Yep.
Like, okay, I mean, I'm not giving myself enough credit there, but like, but definitely just kind of like learning as I'm experiencing things and kind of crossing roads as I come to them. And so I liked having a team. I liked kind of that like management side of things. And I liked, kind of expanding my little circle to a bigger group and helping other people. So that's where I kind of wanted to expand into that team world, but that also made my space feel small because I wasn't used to sharing it. So it's been
Why
a
not get a second location? Just throw on a whole other location on top of there.
yeah,
Why
just
not?
pile it on.
Yeah, I remember so you had applied and that allows us to jump on a what we call a hello call, basically where I start to understand your business to make sure that the program can serve you and is a good fit, and that that you'd make a great fit inside the program. And I think it was it was the last week of December, right? And you're like, oh, by the way, I take over the keys on the second location on Monday. That's already signed, locked, and loaded. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's go over numbers. And so I think it was, you were already
So don't
committed
tell
to it.
me I made a bad choice.
I think I did. I think, well, I wouldn't label it as a bad choice, but I mean, and then I still fully believe this, of like, let's like solve for one problem at a time. Let's get you a blueprint of what's working in one location, then we can expand to another. You had various different revenue streams, like you had apprentices for permanent makeup and like room rentals. So there was a lot of different, what I might consider like spaghetti being thrown at the wall and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And what's been so fascinating and like what I've loved about watching your journey over these last 5 months is that the way that you process the information in your business now is to me drastically different. And you can kind of speak to your own journey on that, but it used to be panic, urgency, got to fix things. And that was kind of like duct taping together a lot of your business and your life experience. And we were overworking and, just not really prioritizing Susie's experience of the business. Can you kind of share over the past few months, even the things that were tough and even ways in which you've been challenged outside of your comfort zone, how you've started to really focus in on those database decisions and really digging into the numbers?
Absolutely. So I think like one of the first things that you kind of grounded me in was just taking that step of like, take a moment and breathe and then come back to it later, because you don't need to solve it right now, especially when I was feeling really emotional about something. I think that's just been like, especially for the last 5 months, I've really been focusing on, I'm not responding right now. I'm giving myself the time to look at it with more logical eyes and to look at things from like more of a number standpoint. And by doing that, it allowed me to look and see where there are areas of opportunity in what I'm doing in my business. And there's like, it's kind of like the more you learn, the more you feel like almost like the less you know, because all of a sudden you just have more awareness about the things that you have in front of you. Whereas like when you're running from this mode of just panic and, oh my gosh, like the sky is falling, you're solving for one little thing and it's not preventing that from happening again in the future.
Yes.
So being able to like develop something where I'm putting systems in place, making strategic decisions that will help me to build a foundation for, I can look at what I've built and I can say, is that where I want my business to go? Does that like feed my ultimate, goal that I want to achieve? If not, then like, should I spend my time on it? And so I think like that definitely is the main thing that I needed, was to just have that mindset work and to just be able to give myself a little bit of space and grace. So.
Yes, I think what you're speaking to is almost like your decision making was what is going to bring me the relief the fastest, the immediate relief from my experience that's maybe unpleasant. Maybe, we're losing money every month, or sales are declining, or this team member may leave, or this team, I'm just hiring, just all of these different decisions that we don't have clarity on the end destination we're working towards when we're just firefighting and just trying to get relief. So we're not actually fixing any problems. In fact, we may be creating more problems because all of those belief systems based on feelings led you to getting a second location that maybe the business didn't really need, right? And that's fine, right? It's you're going to make decisions in your business and it's going to have pros and cons for both ways. And so you kind of just deal with it as it comes. And I think to what you're saying is like, now you don't feed into the urgency and panic that comes up. You actually have the awareness of like, this does feel urgent. This feels panicked. So maybe I'm not in a great state of mind to make a strategic decision. And so I'm going to give myself space, because emotional regulation when it comes to running a business, especially when you're building out a team, is like the number one gift you can give everybody in your life, of being like, I'm not going to react out of fear, panic, because that's not going to get me to where I want to be. I need to come at this with clear eyes. And sometimes we need a day or 2 or 12 to make a decision. And a lot of times that's just communicating to whoever whether it's a client, whether it's a team member, whether it's your partner, whether it's your spouse, anything like that. It's like, I need a minute. I will get back to you. I will come back to this, but I've got to calm myself down first because I am not making clear-headed decisions. And so I just want to honor the fact that, like, also with that, you now have the skill set and tools to be able to go, okay, what is the data saying? And we keep leading you back into that. Even yesterday, you had posted like, okay, I'm turning a team member from commission to hourly. How much can I pay her? What did we do? We had you go look at the data. And so it gave you data points to now look at, to consider, and look at your profit goals first and foremost. And where does this team member fall into that? So kind of tell me about the financial piece of it, what that journey has been, like the clarity that understanding your finances a little bit better and being able to have data to go look at. Tell me about that. Because I know if you just looked at profit and loss alone without getting curious about the numbers, it would have said you had a loss because of that second location, all the initial expenses. But what ahas have you had in being able to work the numbers and get curious about the numbers?
So just having everything spelled out, kind of like bucket everything, I'm able to ground myself in the numbers. I'm able to look at them and say, okay, if I take out all of those initial expenses, sales are looking really great. And yeah, of course I have work I can do with my gross margin and like with some of my other expenses. But like now I can look at that and say, oh, I can easily pick like 3 things that I could work on, cutting costs on. It gives me more of like a tactic instead of just feeling like, oh my gosh, like I worked so hard this month and I barely made any money. Like, it's like, okay, like you start to get kind of the vision for the business more in the numbers because you're able to project into the future, almost like, okay, my sales are starting to stabilize. I even have upside in sales as I'm bringing on a couple of other team members. As I get other things in place, I'm creating the best scenario to increase my profits going forward.
Yeah, it gives you like that game plan. And what I'm doing right now, because I'm looking down, is I'm trying to go find, do you remember what your numbers were when we started to break them down and we started to get out those initial first startup expenses from that second location? Do you remember what those numbers were?
I can't remember, but I know that it made the difference between, looking at the numbers and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm just like pouring money out of every orifice.
Yeah, what happens when you get a second location? You're starting another business. All right, I'm gonna find that because I think that was huge in you, because we started to point out some different numbers. And maybe was it on your one-on-one call that we went through that?
Yes.
I'm trying to say, okay, so maybe that's where those numbers were. Because we looked at, you had a lot of expenses from the initial startup of the second location. And what we've been working on is getting your numbers cleaner, where your one location, your original location has its numbers, your second location has its numbers, and we can take off those one-time expenses to get a accurate picture of where the business is at now, to know, do we need to increase sales? Do we need to decrease expenses? Or do we need to do both, because that will increase profitability? I actually just stopped the episode and I was like, Susie, we got to go find that conversation because people need to hear this. So talk to me about she posted in our Mastermind Facebook group. We were having a chat about numbers. And initially you said, oh, I blocked my day off to go about this. You shared your spreadsheet with me. And what was your initial assessment of your numbers when you were looking at your spreadsheet? Because I think you have your startup expenses for that second location in there.
So this happens frequently because it's like I'm still kind of getting through that initial, like getting through the new numbers phase. So this is where like I need to keep continually working on my mindset. I felt like everything, like I said, money is just pouring out everywhere and I am not profitable. And like, when am I going to turn the corner? Just like I was.
And you said, I'm still in the red, is what your comment had been too, right?
My bank account feels like I'm in the red. Yeah.
Feels, keyword
very
there.
much
Okay.
a feeling kind of moment. Yes.
Okay. Yep. And I understand and acknowledge that it probably feels that way because we hadn't actually looked at numbers or we were maybe looking at the wrong numbers. It's not that you weren't looking at numbers, but you were looking at the bank account number that didn't quite paint the full picture. And I think where a lot of people get lost is they only look at sales, right? If sales are declining, or, you look at your expenses and they're through the roof and all this kind of stuff, but really we need to look, there's a much bigger picture about where the business is at that we can look at. So in my oh so loving, tough love kind of coaching, do you want to read that kind of first comment I responded to?
Yeah, do you want me
And
to
kind of give an idea of coaching?
The voice in the way it's
yes, in Tara's coaching voice. Please do. Please do.
And I really need you to check yourself in the focusing on the negative. You told me on Instagram that you were still in the red, and my
quote unquote
me and how you responded to this is that you are placing a heck of a lot of heavy and negative meanings on these numbers, when the reality is you are not in the red.
Ding, ding, ding.
In fact, you're profitable and you're maintaining your profit even with an annual insurance expense that came through. You have a profitable business with 2 locations.
In all caps.
Acknowledge yourself for this. Sure, we can focus on things we can improve upon, but they're not as hard or as heavy as your brain wants to have you believe. I'm fucking doing it.
Yeah.
So well, the numbers don't lie. So then you go on to tell me that I am up 40% in sales from year to date last year. And oh, by the way, you probably just passed the 100K in sales mark right now, which is true. I'm at about 110 right now. And
in May.
In May, which last year you crossed the 100K mark in August. Let's celebrate that shit. Let's do it.
Yes, ma'am. That is how we coach. So what was happening there was Susie had the belief that things were falling apart, that it wasn't working, that she's in the red. Why? Well, either she was looking at the wrong numbers, or she was just basing it off of feelings. And the numbers told a very different picture. And so a lot of what we work on with you guys inside this program, because this is what's helped me, is go find the numbers that give you accurate information to make informed decisions. So is it true you are profitable or not, right? That's the first thing we ask anybody. Are you profitable or not? Well, we had to go look. And the truth is that you were profitable, even with some of these bigger expenses coming in, because you thought, I think April was down because you had an annual expense like for your insurance that came through, and like, whoa. However, part of that is also creating the awareness around of like, that wasn't a surprise payment. You could have anticipated that. And if our sales are tanking every single month, we don't just let it continue to happen. We can create marketing plans and have marketing promotions and get really good at marketing at continuing to drive sales. So when we looked at the numbers, she was still profitable, period. The whole year we were looking at the first 4 months of the year, she was still profitable. So cool. Are we as profitable as we want to be? Well, probably not, because you were having the experience of there not being a lot of money in the bank account. And so we don't just go, oh, it's just not working. We get curious as to where is the money going and what is the number you need in the bank account to feel that safety and security that you feel like you're lacking right now. So when we compare to where you were last year, because look, business is not always an overnight success. In fact, it rarely is. Are you at least doing better this month than last month, this year than last year? Let's show progress, because that will then retrain your brain to identify evidence of it's working. What you're doing is working. So we compared numbers from last year to this year. You were 40% up in sales year to date. Cool. What we're doing is working. You're hiring a team. You're getting your lower cost team members on. So your labor costs are really high. Go ahead.
And one other really important factor is that I'm now only in the treatment room 2 days a week.
Weird. 40% up in sales. You're working less in the treatment room.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I also have scaled back my apprentices, and I'm working on not having that a part of my business model anymore. So
that's another income stream that's down, but sales are up. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's important factors to know, because if your sales had gone down and you knew that you were making these changes, it would make sense that your sales went down. So your sales are more than making up for you being in the treatment room and another revenue stream that you're pulling back on, because it's not the direction you want the business to go. Right? And so then the second win of that was that you passed 100K 4 months sooner than you did last year.
Yeah. And
right?
my
And so
goal
you're
for the
already on
year,
trajectory to do, go ahead.
my goal for the year is 250,000, and I feel like now I should have aimed higher,
I
honestly.
mean, I might have tried to get you to aim higher, but you
You
know,
did,
y'all
but
want to
it
be
was so
conservative and play
scary.
small. It's fine. But that's just the thing, is that we place so much meaning on it being scary of like, oh my gosh, if I do 300,000, it's just a number. Whether
Yeah.
you hit it or not doesn't change anything. It's let's motivate and incentivize you to make decisions differently at a bigger level. Because here's the thing, if you play it safe, you will continue to get the same experience. If nothing changes, nothing changes. However, those of us that like to play a bigger game because life lived outside of the comfort zone is really much more where we get that time freedom, where we get that money freedom. Because look, the way that we're in society, and I'm going to go on a little tangent here, the way that we're conditioned in society is play small, stay within the lines, get in line, wait your turn, pay your dues, all of this. It doesn't work for entrepreneurship. We are trained and conditioned in society and in our schooling to be really good employees. That same approach does not work for scaling a business. That's why we have business owners who work excessive amounts, never take home a paycheck, pay their team more than they're making, and all of a sudden they're like, it's not worth it.
Mhm.
We have to untrain our brain to look at it through the eyes of an employee. And that's what you're starting to see, is like the business needs to need to make these decisions. In fact, you've let a team member go, which I mean, maybe you would have let her go, maybe you wouldn't had you joined the mastermind, but I think it became very clear, like, what I'm trying to build here, this person is not in alignment with. They gotta go. And it can be really hard. I don't know that letting team members go gets any more emotionally easier, but you don't place as much meaning on it because you know ultimately the business is going to be better. They're probably better off a place that aligns more with them, and we can kind of let all of that heaviness go. Still
Yeah.
kind of sucks to have that conversation.
But it
But
actually removes some of that emotion from it. Like, of course, I care about people as human beings, but like
yes,
ultimately, it doesn't feel as personal from my perspective. So, and I'm able to communicate it in a way where hopefully that they get that message as well, if it's just not a good
but
fit.
even if they
That's for
don't,
both.
that's their journey to go on. Most people shouldn't be fired having no idea why they're getting fired. You had given her many opportunities. You had policies in place. You had opportunities for her to step up to the plate and meet the expectations that the role required. And she made choices not to comply with those for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
so we just got to like accept that it's not a good fit, and thinking it's the worst thing in the world for somebody to get fired from a job. I think it's a great learning lesson. And we
Mhm.
can't enable and try and save everybody from hitting rock bottom or having hardships if they're not choosing to avoid that on their own. She had plenty of opportunity. And so, I think from that standpoint, the business definitely needed that decision to be made. You were a great steward in doing what the business needed to be made, even though maybe Susie herself, not business owner Susie, but just regular Susie, wouldn't want to put somebody in that position. But you're a business owner, and there are decisions that need to be made to help the business. And you're
Mhm.
not done with that. This is business. Problems will come up. Success is not the absence of problems. It is your ability to handle them as they come up. And that, Susie, is what I've seen the biggest growth. I'm not here trying to make you super comfortable and just like everything's la di da, but giving you the tools to go find the data so the data tells you what to do. So it takes the emotion out of it, takes the heaviness out of it, gives you the bandwidth emotionally to not have to urgently respond to things, and giving you that destination that you want to go to. Here's the business I want. Here's why I want it. Here's where I'm taking this business. Here's the impact I want to have. Who's on board with me? Let's find those people. Let's get there together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another interesting fact about me is I I look back at my like kind of bookkeeping accounting journey throughout my career, and I started off by having a notebook where I like kept track of all
Mhm.
of my transactions. And then, I started kind of managing things more in my booking software. Not great, but like I was making strides. Then I finally was like, oh, I got an accountant and a bookkeeper. Like, this is great. Like, I'm so legit now. And I looked at my profit and loss statements for the first time really in depth when I started with masterminds. And now I'm like in it all the time. And now I'm like bucketing things with thought and with purpose and understanding what the numbers actually mean. So in that in itself is like giving me the tools that I need to make less emotional decisions and more fact-based decisions, which ultimately just makes my stress levels way more manageable.
Yeah, because you can't grow what you don't know. And so when we ostrich the numbers in our business, either because we haven't learned what numbers to do, or we just replace a lot of meaning on the money and I'm not good with money and all this stuff. Um, those numbers paint a picture about your business. It will tell you what you need in your business. And sometimes that takes learning what that is. And that's a lot of what we focus on our higher level programs in Society Accelerator and Mastermind is what are the numbers telling you about your business? Because you're already experiencing the pain points, but without the numbers associated with your experience, we can't affect change on it. And so even the conversation we were having in the group yesterday is like, okay, where does my profit margin need to be? How does this team member fit into it? Do I need to hire? We just look at those numbers and find what's the easiest, fastest way to get you towards your goal. And then you just go do that. And we put the blinders on, right? We put all of these shiny objects and I could do this and I could do this and I can mentor, a student and all this kind of stuff. It's like, just focus in on this for 90 days, create change. And that's how you've been able to see so much growth. That's how I've been able to increase our sales 52% from last year and increase our profitability 4,000% in 6 months. Why? Because I'm focusing on those numbers and making decisions and having the discipline to say no to the things I want to do. Because look, there's a ton of different things I want to do. But I also know I am here to impact these numbers and this is the direction we're heading. Because especially when you get a team on board, you're going to be heading in a direction. And if you are constantly changing directions, we're going to offer permanent makeup, we're going to do these services. Now we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. It confuses your team and they're not as efficient, they're not as productive. And it also ruins their experience as an employee because they see you all haphazardly all over the place. Employees like stability and consistency. They like to know that they're doing a good job. They like to know that they're growing and progressing. And if we keep changing things in the business, they can't keep up with that pace. Whereas entrepreneurs, to get from 0 to 100,000, that's all we're doing is changing, pivoting, moving, especially when pandemics in there. It's like, we got to just do anything to make money. But when you start to go to that multiple 6 and even 7-figure business, it's the boring stuff and getting into numbers, financials, but that's where the freedom comes. Yeah. And that's why you've been able to pull back out of the treatment room.
And I feel like right now I'm at a place in like my scalable journey where when I was by myself, it became easy to make $100,000 to reach that 6-figure goal because all I had to do was work more. All I had to do was
trade your time for money.
Like I just said, oh, if I work 50 weeks out of the year, like, okay, I'll divide 100 by 50 weeks and I've got to make $2,000 a week. Boom. Like I can do that in my sleep. I mean, I didn't start feeling that way, but that's the point I got. And now I make way less right now. But I'm working way less. I'm growing faster. I'm developing towards something bigger. So I feel like now I'm investing in myself. It's like this kind of like stage of investing in myself and like creating things that are going to be sustainable and see regular growth that don't mean that I have to work 60 hours a week.
Yeah, because I want to clarify that statement here because you were well, I don't know how intentional you were, but you made choices along the way that took away from you spending money or paying yourself more, right? Because I know people can hear that of like, oh, she's growing, but she's not paying herself. Girl opened a second location,
and I still am money myself. I still am giving myself a paycheck every pay period. There's been one pay period that I didn't pay myself, and I think I ended up increasing my next pay period. I just needed that cash for that moment, but I have stayed true to not giving myself that like base salary that I've set for myself. And now I'm just really working on increasing owner draw.
Yeah. So and that's profitability, right? Because you can't, your pay as the owner is going to come from the profitability. So to give context, if she hadn't opened the second location, that would have been money going into your pocket as sales and profit have grown. You would have been paying yourself more. You invested back into the business by way of the second location. And so those are intentional decisions, whether you knew what that really was going to mean. So for anybody looking at how do I pay myself more? Well, you got to understand the money coming into your business and the money going out. A lot of people spend money on ridiculous things, or I need to do a rebrand, which cool, fine. You need to do a rebrand. But to what point? How is that going to increase the client's results or experiences that's going to impact the growth of the business? Most of the time, it isn't at that phase. And that's money and time and energy that goes away from you being able to put it in your pocket. And so all of that is just creating awareness around money coming in and money going out. So you can make those intentional decisions of like, yep, second location is the right fit. What we've been able to do to Susie's benefit with the second location is we've actually advised her to go in and track every single expense she had for the startup, because now she's building out a template of what's required and the investment needed to open up another location. So guess what? When Susie wants to open up a third location, she's got the blueprint and the process on how to do it. Right? So it's happening for you.
No, right now.
Well, sure, you're saying no right now because we got to get that baby pumping, but we're going to get one location pumping, get you paid, get you profitable. We have a blueprint of success we're going to put in the second location, but still 5 years from now or 3 years from now or whenever you want to, if you wanted to, you have a blueprint of what it costs so that you can have that money set aside now, or like start working towards that. If you want a third location, you don't have to figure out those beginning starter steps and be caught off guard as much. And you'll be able to make it as a strategic decision of like, cool, you know, we opened up a second location. It took us 6 months to break even on the original investment. And then after that, we were profitable within a year. Cool. So now, you know, moving forward, if you get to the point where the second location is booming and, you know, things are going well, we want to scale it again and open a third location, you don't have to have the learning curve like you've had before. So it all worked out for you. And that's something that we often say in the program is that you're either going to get the result you want or the lesson you need. Either way, you win.
Yes, I agree.
All right, awesome. Well, let's wrap this up with one final question. For anybody who's considering joining the mastermind, or even, you know, when you think back of, you know, back in December when you were considering the mastermind, what would Susie of today kind of speak to Susie of 6 months ago to give her hope, to give her just something to consider of this being either a good investment or not, for where she wants to take her business?
I absolutely have no regrets at all about joining the mastermind group. I feel as though it's given me, I feel like I haven't even wrapped my arms around all of the tools that are currently available to me to help me, but I feel like fully supported in my business. So I feel like from a mindset mode, business acumen, financial awareness, all of these things are beyond what I could have even anticipated needing at the time of starting. So it's been an interesting journey just to kind of put everything together and to know that the questions that I had, I didn't even necessarily know how to formulate the questions that I had until I started getting more information. So it's just been really an eye-opening journey. It's also been really great to connect with other people who are in that same journey with you, that you can talk freely and open about, you know, things like your numbers. People, you know, you're not going to go around and share everywhere like, oh, here's my profit margin and here's like all of my stuff, but I can do that here and we can talk about it openly and, you know, just looking at that. So it's created a really great space for me to develop my business further.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. If you guys are interested in learning more about the program, you can join me on one of the free classes I'm hosting called Build a Team, Live Your Dream. You can go to lashpreneur.com/build-a-team to register. And applications for Momentum Mastermind Season 4 close on June 9th. If you'd like to apply, head on over to lashpreneur.com/mastermind. And I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.